Should we be worried as Nigerians? Is this an indication that women would not be fully included in the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's led administration? What immediate steps can we take collectively to ensure that the ministerial list includes a minimum of 35% women? These are some of the questions we need to address tonight. This conversation is live on Women Radio 91.7. You can listen live on Facebook and YouTube at WFM 917. Joining me in this conversation are men and women to remind the president of his promises and especially address the benefits of having 35% women in the president's ministerial cabinet. We acknowledge journalists who have taken time to join the conversation today, and we say thank you. On the panel today, we have Amina Agbaje, National President, International Federation of Female Lawyers, FIDA. We also have joining us Mufuliat Fijabi, CEO, Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and Director, Sustainable Gender Action. We have Ladi Bala, National President, Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ. We have Enebi Okpalowa, Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget. Chikas Kumle, PDP member and social justice advocate. Barrister Jamila Babuba, APC Professional Women Council Northeast Coordinator. Zainab Abdul-Rashid, Programs Officer, RAPA Nigeria. And Saka Azimazi, former Deputy Director, National Human Rights Commission. Once again, we are live on Women Radio 91.7, live on YouTube at WFM 917. You can drop your comment in the chat room live on Google Meet, or you can send us a text or a WhatsApp message on 070-317-56537. All right, so joining us in this conversation today, I've been able to, I've listed out our panelists, people who we're going to be speaking with today as we have this conversation. Mufuliat Fijabi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, so my first question will be going to you this evening. Nigerian Women Trust Fund, under your leadership, won the suit on the 35% affirmative action during the former President Buhari's administration. And I know that this is being contested. It was contested by the then government. Has anything changed in the last 2 months with the President Tinubu's administration? Give us like a situation report. What exactly has changed?
Okay, in terms of the litigation process, not much has changed because we're still waiting for the date for the appeal to be heard so that Nigerian women can also defend the judgment that they won at the Federal High Court on 6th of April 2022. However, because government is successive, the administration will not go on with the appeal, will slash it out and ensure that apart from upholding the judgment, it would also demonstrate its commitment to Nigerian women and to Nigerians in general by ensuring that the minimum of 35% affirmative action is adhered to as he appoints all his nominees into various positions. We've already seen that in the few appointments he has made. He has made some effort, but it's not up to the minimum benchmark of 35%. And 35% affirmative action is not a manufactured percentage. It is a percentage that is solidly founded on the Nigeria's national gender policy. And that's the basis upon which a coalition of civil society organizations led by the Nigerian Women Trust Fund went to the court. And interestingly, Nigeria adopted 35%, against the 30% minimum benchmark set into the Beijing Platform for Action, which the government of Nigeria is also a signatory to. So 35% is the minimum that we're asking for, and this is a necessity to ensure that women's inclusion in governance is not taken for granted. Thank you.
All right, so Mufuliat. So with this first appointment of President Tinubu of 8 special advisors and having only two women, that's about 25%, and also appointing 28, and we're having just 3 women, about 15%. Mufuliat, are you worried? Is this a sign that the ministerial list would is this looking like what the ministerial list would look like if we're having these numbers of women, just 2 and 3 here?
I am very worried because in past governments, women have had to lobby and still the 35% has never been met. Some governments were closer to it. So if we've seen that in the past, I'm particularly concerned, that I hope this particular government will be different by ensuring that it not only fulfills its own campaign promise to Nigerians, but also uphold the judgment, of the 35% affirmative action and demonstrate to the world that truly it's an exceptional government that is politically committed to achieving 35% affirmative action beyond the minimum set in the Beijing Platform for Action, and much more, in the interest of the development of the country. Asking for women's inclusion is not just a lip service. It's about the governance of Nigeria. It's also about having development, grow in the right direction, and having a purposeful path towards ensuring that gender equality and balance is maintained in the country. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mufuliat Fijabi. I mean, this concerns that you have, I'm sure that a lot of Nigerian women also feel the same way. Now, let's look at the legal aspect. We have Amina Agbaji, who is going to be talking to us. Amina, on the judgment delivered by the Federal High Court upholding the implementation of the provisions of the National Gender Policy of 2006 on 35% affirmative action for women, the past administration appealed this judgment. What is FIDA doing with the Nigerian Women Trust Fund and other plaintiffs in taking up this case and speaking for women groups and by extension, Nigerian women? Just what if President Tinubu doesn't go in line with the 35% affirmative action for women? What is going to happen? What are the steps that you have in the works?
Okay, presenter, good evening.
Yes,
and let me start by just making a slight comment from when you were pronouncing the International Federation of Female Lawyers. We are not International Federation of Women Lawyers, we're International Federation of Women Lawyers. So if you're looking for the F, you won't find it because it's a Spanish acronym.
Okay. Noted.
All right. So it gives, let me go on to say that it gives me a great pleasure to be part of this interaction on the need for the implementation of the 35% affirmative action. You have asked me a couple of questions, but before I proceed, let me also appreciate Tong, our sister, the founder of Women Radio WFM 91.7, Nigeria's only radio station for women and their families, and the management of the staff who have organized this interactive session. Let me also congratulate this radio station on your recent event tagged Report Her, to particularly recognize media houses, print, electronic, who are intentional and deliberate in reporting issues that affect women, concern and project women, So I also recognize and appreciate other partners and the audience for joining us in the conversation.
Thank you.
So you have asked me a couple of questions, and so let me begin to deal with those questions, as I seem to appreciate them. As we are already aware, a coalition of 9 women groups had sometime in the year 2022 filed a suit before the Federal High Court, filed a suit in the year 2020 against the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, seeking the mandatory implementation of the 35% affirmative action for women in appointments and provided for by the 2006 National Gender Policy. The coalition, of these 9 women organizations, I will not bother to, mention their names because we already know them. But for purposes of emphasis, let me say that it's Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Women Empowerment and Legal Aid, Women in Politics Forum, Center for Democracy and Development, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, Vision Spring Initiative, Yaga Africa, 100 Women Lobby Group, and of course, the International Federation of Women Lawyers. The said coalition of women was represented by our counsel, Mrs. Fumi Falana. And in her argument before the Federal High Court, Mrs. Falana submitted that women were being discriminated against as a result of our belief that women were inferior to men. She also noted that the national gender policy, which provides that women should be allocated 35% of all appointees, appointments, is being violated. The learned counsel to this coalition relied on Section 14, subsection 3 of the Nigerian Constitution to back up her call for the enforcement of the 2006 National Gender Policy. And then we are delivering judgment in the suit on the 6th of April 2022. My Lord Honorable Justice Donatus Okorowo, who presided over the case, agreed with the applicants and held that the non-implementation of the National Gender Policy on 35% affirmative action on the appointment of women into political positions was a breach of women's fundamental rights. The court also went ahead and upheld the equality of the sexes and as the Constitution mandated in Section 15, subsection 2, and Section 42, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended to recognize gender in all appointive positions. While Nigerian women were celebrating this landmark judgment, the federal government, through the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, appealed against the decision, contending, amongst other things, that the women's suit for the enforcement of the National Gender Policy for affirmative action on the appointment of women cannot be based on Chapter 4 of the Constitution and therefore cannot be enforced by way of fundamental rights enforcement proceedings. Let me use this opportunity to also register my disappointment with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation for appealing against the judgment of the Federal High Court. As the Chief Law Officer of the Federation, he plays a very important function in the administration of justice in the country. Therefore, he is the legal advisor to each government department. He represents the public in all legal proceedings for the enforcement of law and the assertion or protection of public rights. The Attorney General defends the Constitution. I therefore wonder this decision the Attorney General took to stand against the rights of women in Nigeria. As Nigerian women, while we welcome the new government under the leadership of the current president, we must be quick to draw their attention to this landmark judgment and the impending appeal pending appeal against it. It may also be of interest for us to note with deep sense of appreciation that the wife of the president is also a pillar in the struggle for the enforcement of the national gender policy, particularly the 35% affirmative action for women in appointments.
Hello, Amina, can you hear me? Amina,
So,
there?
but, you know, just like the presenter has said, for a moment, let me play. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and so to the second question, and which is playing the devil's advocate, and I said that okay, let me for a moment, you know, play the devil's advocate, just like you have asked. And the question that comes to mind, like you have rightly asked, is what shall we do to ensure that the judgment of the Federal High Court is implemented for the benefit of Nigerian women? And these are actions that we need to take as a coalition. These are actions that we need to take as women groups. The first action that we must take is that the coalition of these Nigerian women should immediately seek audience with the First Lady, who will also lead us to the President, and so that we can brief him on the pending appeal. The second action we need to take is that
Hello, Amina. All right, so I see Amina is having network issue. We'll come back to you, Amina, when you're able to reconnect. Let's go over to Ladi Bala. So, Ladi, if you can hear me, we've constantly reiterated the need for the media to adopt a balanced reportage of women. And we've had a lot of advocacies done, trainings here and there on how to change the narrative. But this particular narrative of there are no capable women who can take on different positions, it needs to be dismissed. And we need the media to also focus more on the president to be able to deliver on his promises on inclusion of women. That is holding him accountable. How do we get the media to advocate for the president to adopt a minimum of 35% of women in his ministerial cabinet, Ladi? Hello, Ladi, can you hear me? All right, so we'll come back to Ladi if you're not on, and if you're on, please do unmute your mic so we know. All right. So we'll go over to Zainab Abdurrashid, Programs Officer, Rapper Nigeria. So after the judgment of the Federal High Court ordering the federal government to comply with 35% affirmative action for women, there hasn't been any much difference in the percentage of women being appointed in the political space. How would the appointment of at least 35% of women under the current administration contribute to the development of the country, Nigeria, in your opinion, Zainab? Zainab, can you
Good
hear me?
evening, everyone. Yes, please, I can.
All right, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for
Yes.
having me on the call.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the Women Radio for the just concluded awards. Going by what we have on the plate right now in Nigeria, with the 35% affirmative action not being met with the positions so far appointed, and looking ahead, I think we still need to do a bit more if we need to achieve a holistic development in Nigeria. The elections have gone by, and we also what went by. Women in the legislative houses have dropped, and then we now are left with appointed positions of ministerial offices. And so if we must have sustainable development, holistic by the way, we need to put all hands on deck and make sure that advocacy around making this a reality, that's the 35% affirmative action, should be on the front burner. This would likely lead to a more inclusive government where the issues of usually marginalized and excluded voices are, brought forth. I hope I'm being heard. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Zainab.
Okay. And so it means a lot for Nigeria if at least we can achieve that. It will mean that the gender gap is, being closed bit by bit, because it's not a day's job. We're largely faced with a patriarchal society where over time we've seen that discrimination from various social norms and values has affected how governance has been run over time. And so if this has to change, I think with the new administration having this behind, on the top burner of, their administration, then it has to, translate to a lot for women. In developing countries like Rwanda, for such a country to achieve up to, 52 seats, 61.25% of women in governance, I think that should be a call to action for Nigeria in particular, because being the giant of Africa should not just be by name. We should be able to, exemplify governance for other African countries to emulate. And so having the new government, this is the right time to make sure that, okay, elections have gone by, we haven't achieved what we should be having, because women constitute half of the population of Nigeria, and having to marginalize this population means marginalizing such potential, such talent, and all of that. And so you're having a disservice on your own country by not having these women on the front burner in decision making. Getting them deliberately into appointed positions. There are a lot of qualified women in all sectors, I must repeat, in all sectors, technocrats, who can contribute meaningfully in very vital and crucial sectors like education, which is vital to the sustainability of our nation, because you can see what's going on with brain drain. A lot of our, experienced and very good hands have all gone out of this country. No thanks to, the level of education that has dropped, and all of that, and all the conditions of service that are not so favorable to the upcoming ones. And so it's not a surprise to see that Nigeria is doing itself a disservice by not having the real hands, the technocrats, even women at community levels that are contributing meaningfully in their local areas, on the table, on the front burner, to make sure that they bring this talent on board for national development. National development is not just at the federal level. We need to look down to the grassroots, to the state level, and as well as the federal. Having all voices, on board on this mission is what we need for an inclusive, socially inclusive, economically inclusive, and politically inclusive, I must say, governance. And having that will mean we'll have a transparent, all-inclusive, holistic as well, and sustainable, leadership process going on in our country. So there's more to just having a bit of the population of a country contributing to developing its population, its space, than having just the men, youth, women, and all vulnerable groups like women with disabilities and the like need to come on board so that their issues can be tabled on the front burner of decision making at every level. Every level has to be taken on board for inclusivity in governance. So gender equity, social inclusion, and empowerment for women is crucial to mainstream their voices in leadership in Nigeria if we must achieve development holistically. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Zainab. Ladibala, I see you are back on with us. Please do unmute your mic. I'm coming back to you with the question I asked earlier. The need for the media to adopt a balanced reportage of women. There's been different advocacies, training here and there, changing the narrative, but the part where people get to talk about, we don't have enough women, we don't have capable women who fit into these different positions. Now, as a media practitioner, how can we get the media to intentionally advocate for the president to appoint a minimum of 35% of women in his ministerial cabinet, and to keep talking about it so that we can hold the president accountable on his promises to Nigerian women?
Thank you very much. I heard you the first time. I guess you were not hearing me. I heard the question quite clear. I want to say thank you for having me, and I must commend Women Radio for coming up with this conversation. I think this is timely, quite apt that we start talking about the 35% affirmative action. Yes, in the past, there is, I think, the representation of women in the media may still be seen as quite low, but I think we are making progress. There's serious shift, in the way women are being reported in the media, particularly women in politics. If for us at our end now, watch build up to the 2023 general election, we have taken time. In fact, we have this particular training for the last 5 years on gender sensitive reporting, how to report women, looking at them from the gender lens and the issues involved. I think that perception about women not being well represented in the media is gradually shifting to women getting more visibility. But I think the issue here for me is the engagement of media. A lot of groups, CSO, a lot of people are doing a lot of stuff around women participation in politics, about increasing the representation of women in governance. But I think the media, and particularly journalists, are not being mobilized, in the process. They are not being carried along in the process. I think the way media is being used, it's like media is being used like an one-off thing. You know, and again, this issue of that 5% that we are talking about, it is a serious issue that's lingered on in this country for too long. And it does not speak well about our democracy. You know, yeah, it does not speak well about our democracy, because if democracy is for the people and by the people, and you have more than almost half population of a nation that is not being carried along, that their issues are not being brought to the table, that they are not on the decision making table, it does not, I mean, to me, it's not democracy that we are practicing. And I think this should bother anyone that wish Nigeria well. And so based on that, it is important that the issue of this affirmative action, because we have lost it already at the election, it is so appalling, it is so worrisome that as we speak today, we don't have a good number of women at the National Assembly that we even begin to engage on the issue of the 5 gender bills that were thrown out last year. However, it is not, we will not say there's no way out of it. But what I'm saying here, that it will require strategic media engagement at this point in time. Before the election of the 10th Assembly, you know, NAWAJ, for instance, you know, issued a press statement. We engaged on the need for us, for the government, particularly we spoke, I mean, to the president himself, to see how we'll have a female, you know, occupying key position at the National Assembly. That was for me personally, that was my first disappointment, that did not scale through, because of the kind of promises that the APC, the president, you know, made during his campaign. So we had expected to see semblance of what, you know, we were made to believe that will happen. But the moment we lost it at the National Assembly, and with the few appointments that were made, that does not reflect that, I mean, what we are anticipating may come to pass. I'm personally, I feel worried, and I'm happy that we are all sharing, you know, the same concern. But what is the way forward for us? Serious media engagement is very critical. And when you are doing in media engagement, you know, it has to be intentional. It has to be intentional, and we must have something in focus that we are aiming at. And it will require the collective, you know, responsibility of all of us that we are talking about. These women, I mean, having the 33% affirmative action. It's not so, and then we have to engage the media to ensure that they make this part of the agenda that should be set in the next 2 weeks or so. How do we do that? We have to get all the media organization, particularly the anchors persons that represent different organizations. I'm talking about the broadcast media, all this morning show. How deliberate are we to ensure that this issue is reflected, you know, is projected in an intentional way to elicit the right response from the president. And I only think that we need to also go to adopt the unconventional way of achieving this. I was hoping that, and I'm still hoping that the wife of the president, who happened to be a member of a senator, okay, you know, she has been in the Senate, and she's aware of this issue, the gender issue, you know, gender bills. How do we correct? How do we bridge these gaps that we're experiencing today? I believe that there's need for us to adopt the unconventional way, while we are trusting God that this current administration will equally obey, you know, and implement the national gender policy, of which we were able to secure judgment, even though the issue is still pending, based on the explanation that the FIDA president has made, and Madam the Women Trust Fund CEO. I believe that we need to adopt an unconventional way. Is there any need for women groups to come together and engage with the wife of the president? Because there's need for this administration to live up to its bidding. All the promises of that 5% that they have made. The president even went ahead to say that he is going to even come up with a law that will guarantee, you know, the safety of women in the area of appointment across board. And if if this government must be taken seriously and be seen as a government that's truly out, to renew the hope of Nigeria, the best thing to do at this point in time is to ensure that it goes, if it cannot go beyond 35%, in appointed position, it should be able to give Nigerian women the 35% as an appointment. This will build the confidence of Nigerians, that yes, this government means business. The body posture of the government so far in some of the decisions and policies already being implemented, it shows that it's a government that is really willing, to give Nigerians that real hope, But then the issue of women, because women, the issue of women, we can't talk about developing without women. Their voices must be heard, and women must be on the decision-making table. And we don't want a symbolic appointment. That's what we are saying. We don't want a symbolic appointment. We want appointment to position that women will be functional, women will be effective. What has been done so far is just a symbolic thing. If out of 20 persons you are appointing and you're just giving women 3 or 4, it does not reflect, the body language does not reflect someone that really wants to carry women along. So I think it's important that we're engaging in this conversation, but we need to broaden it. We need to engage all media platforms in Nigeria as we speak today. And it is interesting for us to equally know that engaging media equally means it's capital intensive. So we also need to set aside resources and be intentional about engaging all platforms to ensure that, to set the agenda so that the government will know going forward, this is one issue that must be addressed if this democracy, particularly this administration, will be accepted by women in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Ladi. And really, that was extensive. I hope that there are women groups who are picking up on this and will be leading a delegation to the First Lady on how to champion this cause. I'm moving over to Honorable Adewumi Ononuga. Firstly, we congratulate you on your appointment as Deputy Chief Whip, House of Representatives. Congratulations on that. So now, going to your question, please do unmute your mic if you can hear me clearly, Honorable. As an actively involved lawmaker promoting women's representation, what should we expect from the president in the appointment of female ministers? Some Nigerians feel that it will be fair inclusion, while some are worried about tokenism, taking into consideration the fact that the president, his first appointment of 8 special advisors had just 2 women, and 28 had just 3 women. And Mufuliat also expressed concern about her fears if this might just be the same thing that will play out in the ministerial list. What are your thoughts, Honorable Adewumi Ononuga?
Thank you very much for the congratulatory message. With regards to the situation at the moment, with regards to tokenism, do I think it is tokenism? I'm not happy with the fact that we had only 2 women being appointed out of the 8.
Okay.
I was hopeful because I was made to understand from the body language of His Excellency the President that we would have at least 40%, that we would even have more than our 35%. Having said that, it is possible that the 40% in totality would even be more than what we're expecting. It may be in the ministerial, it may be in the boards, it may be in the SSAs, it may be in anything else apart from the essays. So I don't really want to say that we have been shortchanged yet, because all the appointments have not been finished, they've not been done with. We cannot say it's tokenism. If perchance we now get to the ministerial, we get to the SSAs, we get to the boards, and then we are on the same path. Because let me tell you, a lot of women, even within the party, have been engaging the president, have been engaging Her Excellency, the First Lady, have been engaging a lot of people in the corridors with regards to, making sure that our hopes are not dashed.
Okay.
So I think it's important for us to also realize that we can't start early enough. We cannot start early enough. We shouldn't stop. We have to keep going on with regards to lobbying. We really have to put on our shoes and our skates and lobby with regards to hitting the 35% affirmative action or even more. We cannot, I think there was someone who was saying to me, how can we compel the president to comply? We cannot compel the president to comply. We can lobby the president to comply because we desire that, you know, he comes up to speed with his promises. So I think that's the route we need to take at the moment. Lobby as many people as we can, continue to push, especially when the 10th National Assembly is in full force, because I can tell you now, we're just starting to get our skates on. And I'm sure that is after the summer recess, when we get back, that work will start in earnest. And all the bills that were thrown out will now be, in fact, we started work on that in bringing them back to the forefront, or to the foreburners with regards to constitutional amendment. We've gone back to the drawing board to tweak what we can tweak in there to make sure that it's a more agreeable language, because don't forget, we are in a patriarchal society, and whether we like it or not, with all the lobbying that we do, there's some men who still sit in the corners and say, what are you trying to do? When you say gender equality, what are you trying to say? The Constitution has already given you those powers. Are you trying to take more than the 50%? Even though they know that the 50% that we're entitled to in the Constitution is not even we're not even scratching 5%, you know. So they keep saying you cannot bring other laws to say gender equality. So we understand that there are things wrong with our language with regards to legislative language or legal language, in order not to, you know, contradict the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we are going back to the drawing board to make sure that our language is in compliance and not going to be on the side of causing agitations with any group when they listen to, you know, what our laws are saying or what our bills are saying, so that when we lobby, we come to them, you know, with clean hands and say, this is what we are saying. We need to take ambiguity away from our bills and let it be as simple and understandable as they want it to be. So that's my point at the moment.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable, for that. Really, we really do hope that we'll see some kind of changes in this, because there's been so many lists flying around. But as a credible platform, we're just waiting for the official list, and that's why we're having this conversation just ahead. All right. Thank you. So I'm moving on to Chikes Kumle. Chikes, if you can hear me, the involvement of women across sectors at this point is critical in pushing for 35% affirmative action in appointment of ministers. I mean, we need different women groups, and somebody has mentioned it, the need for different women groups to come together. And this time around, coming together with one voice, one demand for full inclusion. And this will mean a whole lot for Nigeria at this time where we find ourselves. I mean, whatever policies are being made, women and children get to face the brunt of it first. So we're talking about the need to actually include women. Now, as a member of the PDP, an opposition party to the current administration, what do you expect from this administration of women's inclusion and being held accountable on its promises to women? Chikes.
Thank you so much, Esther. First, I would like to start by appreciating Women's Radio for always amplifying the voices of Nigerian women. And secondly, I would like to congratulate Honorable Ononuga for emerging as the Deputy Chief Whip of the House of Representatives. Being the only woman in the two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives, is no small feat. So congratulations, Honorable Ma. So back to your question, I'm a member of the PDP, and now politics is over. It's now time for governance. And in governance, what you are looking for is providing solutions to the needs of Nigerians. So what that means is, when it's time for campaigns, someone like me, who is a member of the PDP, has limited say in what happens in the APC. But now that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has emerged. He is not just a president of members of the APC. He's a president of all Nigerians. And what that means is half of the population he is leading are women. And what we want to see is a president who is not offering lip service to Nigerian women. Because in the APC, while in the field campaigning for the PDP, we do come across the women in the APC. We see how much they have invested in the campaigns. We've seen how much of resources, energy, and time the women in the APC have given to this campaign, particularly for the 2023 elections. And in going forward, what we are saying is, we want the women in the APC to be appointed. Why? Because they deserve to be appointed. If the men can be appointed, then the women deserve to be appointed too. And we are not saying that as a form of a fight, but we are only saying that these women are competent and they have something sufficient, something concrete to offer the Nigerian people. And in the APC, across all sectors, you can't tell me that you won't find women who are competent to fill in all positions, whether it's the ministerial positions or heads of agencies. And if we, in the opposition, are looking for a president who offers good governance, it's not time for partisanship. Like I said, the politics is over. It's not time for governance. We in the opposition are also hoping and appealing to the president that he gets to work with the women in the APC. Because when that happens, the impact of that government will not only be felt by members of the APC, it will be felt by all Nigerians. And when we're talking of the appointments so far made, to be honest with you, I am greatly disappointed that the appointments so far made have not reached the 35% benchmark that we have been advocating for. But I am praying that going forward, it's going to meet up to, like what Honorable Ononuga said, maybe 40% or 50%. Because why? We have the women that can fill in those positions. Right now, in our state assemblies and in the National Assembly, we grossly have insufficient number of women. So if we have women being appointed in these key positions, it will help them not just to bring to bear what they have to the table, but it will also have a ripple effect in the states. Because when ministers are appointed, assuming now we have 40% of ministers being appointed as women, believe you me, that will send a message to the governors, and it will also reflect in the appointments that will be made in the states. Because not all the states are governed by APC governors. There are states that are NNPP, there are also PDP members. And that is why we're saying, let the president, who is the head, let the president, who is the leader, let his body language speak that he wants to run an inclusive governance. He wants to run an inclusive government so that we can see that trickle down to the states. And also the key issues that are facing Nigerians right now is the cost of living, from the removal of fuel subsidy and also the insecurity in the country. And all of these issues, you can't have these issues seriously addressed without the voices of women heard, because women are the ones who take care of children at home. Women are the ones who understand what it means not to have the educational system working, or what it means to have a society where the infrastructures are not working. The women, if we want to really bring this down to the local women who are the majority in the villages, they are the ones that have difficulty accessing clean drinking water, good roads, and all of these things. Even the basic activities that keeps our people at the rural areas is farming. Majority of the farmers there are women. And just recently, the president spoke about food insecurity. So if we are bringing all of this into the issue of inclusion, you can have the National Security Council meeting where women are grossly misrepresented, and then have other areas where the issues facing Nigerians are being discussed, and then the women are not there. Who is going to speak for that rural woman in the village? Who is going to speak of the hardship that she's facing? So when we are talking of governance, it's not for us to be speaking above the heads of Nigerians. What Nigerians simply want is to have a good life, be safe in their homes, be able to pay their bills, and if we're able to get that done, it will not only be that we're giving these women these positions because simply they're women. What we are saying is we are giving the women these positions so that we get to know what happens to the women at the rural areas, because that's where the governance is really needed. And for being in the field, I'll tell you that a lot is going on in the country that sometimes I feel that our leaders are detached from reality. And that, for me, largely is because most of the men that are sitting to make these decisions on behalf of the people are not the equal representation of the people they govern. If you want to have a table where you have 10 men, you're making it look like a boys' club. Who will speak for the women? Who will speak for the children? Who will speak for the youth? Who then will speak for the people living with disability, who are all in their millions? That is why the representation of women in governance matters. And for me personally, I feel the 35% that we are seeking, yes, is good enough, but even if we are to seek for 50-50 gender balanced representation, there's nothing wrong with that, because Nigeria is at a stage where we need everybody to be on board. And then when we say we need people to be on board, we are not saying you must bring in members of the opposition. No, as a politician, I'll tell you that will be difficult. But you have people in that your party who are competent. We have women in that party who can take up that position and contribute to the national development. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Chikes, for your comments right there. And one thing is the fact that you said campaigns, elections are over. What it is right now, it's just about good governance for Nigerians. Thank you very much for your comments right there. I'm coming to you now, NB Opaliwa, if you can hear me. Let's talk about policy making and the involvement of women and children. The involvement of women, how it affects women and children. There's so many areas where women and children are lacking due to lack of proper representation of women at decision-making tables. And Chikers has also referred to some of these issues as well. Now, I would like for you to highlight the benefits of involving women in policy making and what we stand to gain as a country.
Thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me? Please confirm if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Nebi.
All right. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be invited to this program. But let me just quickly go in. Yes, definitely having women representation has a lot of benefits. First of all, if you look at population distribution in Nigeria,
Okay.
women occupy 49%. If you look at the statistics by the National Bureau of Statistics. If you look at the labor force, the workforce, women still occupy 49% or so. And if you look at our population pyramid, at every age level, from zero across the active population, working population to the aging population, women still occupy about 49 point something. So the country's population is split in every area 50-50 between men and women. So that tells us that if women are not included in certain areas of the economy or decision making, then we are depriving ourselves of about 50% of our workforce, of our muscle, of our intellectual property and intellectual power, which is quite unfortunate. That should not be the case. If you look at the private, just the formal sector, women occupy at the participation is about 7%, 6.9%. 80%. So you can this kind of speak dynamics that one of the speakers was talking about earlier regarding appointments in very serious positions, not just regarding appointment for appointment's sake, but appointing men in very serious political positions. Now, that being said, it is crucial that women have a strong representation, because I don't have much time. I don't think so. I have much time, but I'll just hit one nail on the head. There is a certain perception, a certain perspective that can only be provided by women when it comes to decision making. I'll just quickly give one very recent example. The last Naira resign policy affected Nigerians across board severely. Not many people were comfortable with what happened. It was naira scarcity, access to cash was limited. But there is a certain way it affected women that even I myself didn't realize until I saw a research piece by one of our colleagues, a female researcher in my office, and that opened my eyes. And yes, everybody had limited cash, limited access to cash, but when you come down to how it affected women, one very short example I'll give is the fact that there are certain hygienic, female hygienic products. These are products that can be accessed in many parts of the country only with cash. So when you look at women that were in areas that did not have that kind of technology penetration, financial technology penetration, that means they had problem with procuring female hygiene products. Now that is quite sad, and it's unfortunate to even conceive that that kind of thing will be happening in this country in this time and age. So I believe if there was a female perspective in the design and implementation of that policy, there might have been some consideration. When I say might have been some consideration of these particular groups of people when it comes to policy making, and that is why women are highly needed. There is a perspective that women can only bring, not because men cannot see it, but because of the nature and the capacity and intellect that women possess and carry, then it's much more easier for them to bring things like this to the light. Before I round up, let me just quickly speak about the appointments of the current president, if I can. If you look at all his between the special advisors and special assistants, I think he has made about 32 appointments in all. If I have my counts correctly, of that appointment, based on my count, I think 10 are special advisors. He had a list of so if you look at the entire 32%, that is just about 18% representation, which is still below the mark. But if you decide to unbundle it a bit and look at the special advisor class, he first released a list of 8 special advisors, 2 of which were women, and then a supplementary list, permit me to call it that, of 4 more appointees, 2 special advisors and 2 senior special assistants were added to that list, making it 12. Of those 4 supplementary lists, we had 2 women, so that brings the total number of special advisors to 10, 4 of which are women. So that it brings that to about, in this special advisor class, 40%. Now, I'm not trying to say we should start clapping for the president, but I would say that perhaps it's a body language that we can latch on and see that, okay, if you look at his antecedents as governor and his influence in Lagos State, you realize there is some form of hint towards female representation. As one of the speakers said earlier, appointments are not yet done. The ministerial is not yet out. There are other positions. There are director generals, chairman of parastatals, and national companies. Yes, exactly. So all of these appointments, hopefully, we hope have increased women representation, and it's not for us to just lax. I believe what many of the speakers have said regarding advocacy, engaging with members of the National Assembly, especially the women, would go a long way to putting the agenda of women before the president. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, NAB, and thank you for mentioning that truly during the cash crunch, Nigerian women really had it rough. I can only imagine what it felt like in some rural areas. I'm going to Honorable Ononuga, do we still have you on before I let you go this evening? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm still here.
Okay. So what possible strategy can the parliament adopt now as it is right now? Because this list might be out anytime soon to ensure that the President Tinubu-led administration complies with the national gender policy on 35% affirmative action. So at least this is reflected in the ministerial appointment.
Like I said earlier, we cannot develop any way for him to comply. We can only lobby that he complies. And the APC women leaders have started doing that. They've gone to the villa to see the president. I really haven't gotten back to them to find out what the outcome of that meeting was. I know a lot of us have been talking to the First Lady A lot of us are also trying to get inroads into how the list will be compiled. We do not have a concrete list yet. The authentic list is not out. I have seen like 3 different lists. In fact, there was a particular list I saw that there was no woman on it. And they purposely took out the Minister of Women Affairs. So I said to myself, so are we going to have just one woman, or one woman Minister of State as a woman? So it doesn't give me confidence in the lists that are flying about, but I have confidence in the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I have confidence in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu because he doesn't say something and renege on whatever it is he has said. We may not get 100%, we may not get 60%, we may not get 50%, but I can assure you, because he said 35, 40%, I am holding on to that. And all the lobbying that every one of us, we're working towards and doing, we want to believe that it would bear good fruits. Like I said, all the appointments are still in the kitty. We don't know what all the things are coming out yet. The ministerial list is not kosher. We don't know what to expect in that. But we are not going to stop our lobbying. The work of the parliament is like 60% lobbying, and that's what we've been doing as the ladies in the parliament. I mean, as at I think it was Thursday afternoon, we had a meeting, and we had strategies laid out of trying to push and see how far we can also go with regards to talking to even people who people might not even consider as important. We believe a lot of people are important, and we've been going around talking to them to make sure that there are more women. I mean, in the case of the parliament, is already appalling. That is elected. There is nothing we can do about it. It's come and gone. But in the case of appointments, we can do better. So that's where we're focusing our lobbying strength on at the moment.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Adeomi. All right.
Thank you.
Do have a good evening. Okay.
And you too.
All right. Thank you. For those of us who have comment, members of the public who have comment, you can leave your comment in the chat room on Google Meet, or you can send us a text or a WhatsApp message 070-317-56537. Barrister Jamila Babuba, if you can hear me, please do unmute your mic. I'm coming to you now. Now, looking at the trajectory of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what are your thoughts on his actions and plans for Nigerian women? Should we hold him by his campaign promises on the 35% affirmative action on the ministerial list? I mean, you just heard Honorable Nonuga having to mention that the president is a man of his words and he would not go back on his words. And also, the vice president told Nigerian women about how the president, during his tenure as governor in Lagos State, appointed women and how he worked well with women. And now, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? Should we hold the president by his words? And being a party member yourself, what is the body language around the party? What would you say?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I would like to congratulate Honorable Omoyemi, although maybe she has left, for her appointment as the Deputy Chief Whip. I would like to say that Mr. President has already set the ball rolling. If you look at the issues of women or policies concerning women that the president has already started setting on, which is gearing towards the 35% affirmative action. When you look at the issues of fuel scarcity and then money confiscation, all these things, when it happens, it concerns women more. And then when you look at the issues of education, the issues of health, the issues of industrialization and governance, Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has already been setting arrangements in place in order to bring out all these issues concerning women, more especially security. You know, in the party, when you look at also the committees that he has started forming, some committees led by the Chief of Staff, Bajamia Miller, on issues of women to be appointed into elective positions. And then when you look at the issues of building up the gap, he tried to say that governors, or when it comes to appointment, that women should try to accompany or should try to bring in other women, even from other parties. So from looking at all these things, you will know that Mr. President has women in mind. So other countries have done it. When you look at the Maputo Protocol of 2022, the conference that was done, it's a 50-50 kind of thing. So if other countries can do it, why not our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Of course, we are optimistic that he will do it. Taking into record what he did in Lagos State, his appointments and all the women that he has brought into governance. So I think Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is of the view that he will put a woman into governance, more women into governance. The appointment or the appointment has not been finished. We've just started. You've listed some 2 women and then 3 women or 4 women that are just like 10. I'm very sure that when it comes to ministerial or federal appointments, I know that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will look into the matter and add more women into the system. Governance, women are key or should be key in appointments of women. You know, when he said he wants to bring back, or he wants us to take our country back from all those interests of men or of people that are being hijacked or that hijacked our country or our interests in the country. Just like the professional women, we try to set out gaps about women, professional women that are not participating into political issues, that are not participating into governance and all that. So right from the campaign, we brought all these women, and then we campaigned, we rallied, we voted for the right person. And Mr. President, I'm very sure, will like the women or like professionals to take their place in nation building.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Jamila there. We're hoping that the president actually doesn't go back on his words and does it right by Nigerian women. Saka Mazi, if you can hear me, please do unmute your mic. I'm coming to you with this question. The 35% affirmative action is still in black and white, and almost nothing has been implemented in the real sense of gender balance. And the antecedents of the immediate past administration having about 16.28% female ministers is discouraging. We look at countries like Rwanda, Senegal, Namibia, and we see the progress that they've made due to the involvement of women in the political space. Why do you think that President Tinubu should follow suit with these countries? What do we stand to gain? Because we get to look at these countries, we go to other countries, we go observe elections, see the way things are done. What happens to us actually bringing these things back and implementing them? If it's working in those countries, the African countries, they can as well work for us here. Saka Zimazi, what do you think?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on radio. It's a privilege to be part of this conversation, and the discussion so far, I think, has been very fruitful. In my view, I think the idea of the affirmative action shouldn't be a matter of debate. Actually, it should be a matter of right. It's not, nobody is really begging anyone for a favor. We're only asking that fairness, justice, and equity be observed while putting people in government. Now, there are 2 ways people get into government, by election or by appointment. Clearly, as some of the participants have already noted, that opportunity in terms of election is already lost, but then the appointments have just begun. And I think that we need to continue the advocacy. We need to continue to hammer on the necessity for justice, and therefore we should not relent in making advocacy so that the last opportunity to get women into governance is not lost. Now, when you compare Nigeria with other countries, so to say, with less endowment in terms of population and resources, being able to deal with affirmative action effectively and positively, then Nigeria should have no reason to be lagging behind. I mean, you look at Nigeria, where we have so much human resources across board, across all sectors. And so there is opportunity for the government to give itself a credit by doing the right thing. And so my appeal will be that advocacy should continue, and indeed the tempo should be raised, and so that those who are in authority can do so. But in addition to my suggestion on advocacy, maybe we also need to move downstairs to grassroots. Local governments have women. They have women in those local governments. How do they meet this 35% you are talking about? State governments have appointment and election of women. How do they meet this appointment 35% affirmative action? We should not rely on the federal government alone to get this 35%. We should get it across in all governance at every level. And so that is one area of advocacy that we need to begin to raise flags on.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments right there. This conversation is live on Women Radio 91.7 on YouTube and Facebook at WFM 917. You can leave your comment in the room and we'll take your comment and your contribution on the program this evening. Mufuliyat Fujabi, I'm coming back to you. There's been different comment about the need to lead delegation to the president to lobby, to advocate for his administration to actually comply with the court judgment, especially on the implementation as it is right to the ministerial list. So what plans are in the works for this? Nigeria Women Trust Fund, the plaintiffs, like what Amina or FIDA has mentioned as well. So are there plans to lead this delegation to the president for this?
It's a good thing to lead a delegation to meet with the president. Perhaps maybe he also hasn't seen the full content of the judgment, and then perhaps we can have his advisors who can also brief him on all of this. But at the same time, we don't want to be an unwelcome guest. So we're looking forward to an opportunity to talk more about the judgment with the president, and to also be able to highlight the significance of having an inclusive process in place. So yes, it's timely. Yes, it's important that alongside the lobbying that I know that the women within the APC are doing, there's need to complement such efforts. And that's why I was also happy to see Right Honorable Ononuga here, and I also want to join others to congratulate her. And I believe that now is the time to do more of those efforts that women do ordinarily, to get what we need to get, and to ensure that women are not left behind in the discussions. Thank you. Over.
All right. Thank you so much, Mufuliyat. A comment from Abiodun Eshet of the Manifesto is saying that hopefully the list will be out next week, and we need to keep reminding the president about his renewed hope and the 35% inclusion of women and 3 youth under 40. Hopefully this will be captured. All right. Once again, the comment, you can send in your comments via the Google chat room, and we'll be sure to take all of your comments. And we're live on Women Radio 91.7 on Facebook and YouTube at WFM 917. Enabi Opalua, I'm coming back to you with this question. Talking about civil society organizations coming together. At this point in time, there's need to look at different options, different collaborations that can happen. Mufuliyat Fujabi just mentioned that it is possible that the president hasn't actually gone through this judgment, and we just need to allow for time before we lead the delegation to the president. What do you think about CSOs having to come together to go to the president to tender this as something worth looking into?
Well, thank you very much. I think that's a worthy consideration. There is always a profit in coalition, and coming together kind of helps to reinforce your strengths and maximizes your potential in terms of presenting your case before the president. There are certain CSOs that have deeper reach with certain aspects of the country or politics because of the what kind of work they do. We have CSOs that focus on the National Assembly, that focus on politicians, the executive branch of government. So having the coalition of these CSOs so that you can leverage on their strengths and increase your access to people who matter when decisions are made is a very, very good strategy. Like many people have mentioned earlier, uh, in terms of elected offices, there's really very little you can do, at least for now, in Nigeria. How those officers came into office, yeah, it's not solely by one person's decision. You know, a lot of things went into it that we cannot even begin to dissect right now. But looking at the appointees, there's still a lot of positive ground that can be made, and leveraging on the strengths of multiple CSOs can do something. The last suit had a combination of about 8 to 9 CSOs that are pushing that case through the courts. That is a very, very good strategy in terms of advocacy and taking the case before leadership of the country. That is also a good, the same set of CSOs, even additional CSOs can come together and push the agenda where it matters.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments right there. Okay, so I'm going back to Amina of FIDA. So you've had different people having to make comment talking about the need to lead delegation. So what would FIDA be doing in this regard?
All right. Thank you again, Esther, and thank you, everyone. I think one thing is evident in this conversation. We have somehow agreed that a delegation be led to see the wife of the president, who has also been a pillar of support in the pursuit, even in the case for 35% affirmative action. And then she would lead us onto the president. Now, the essence is for emphasis. And when we come together with one voice to make a demand or to lobby or to make a request, it carries more weight. Now, we are saying that all of these are the options that are available to us. When before we come together, we should have in our basket a pool of requests that we are going to make, whether by way of demand, whether by way of lobbying, whether by way of request, whether by way of appeal. We must be able to speak with one voice. And the issue of unity is very, very important. We cannot afford to be singing discordant tunes at this moment. Now, we have belief in the abilities and the political will of Mr. President to get up to the 35% that we are looking for as women. This is because we have seen that he has supported his wife, in becoming a president. And he has also supported other women in whether elective or appointive position. And we believe that he is able to bring to bear on the national platform, what he is able, what he has done, in Lagos. So we believe that when we come together, whether as this, we come together as a coalition of men and women and civil society to lead a delegation, our voice will be heard loud and clear.
All right. Thank you so much, Amina, for your comments today. And I hope that women groups are picking up all of this comment and suggestions, civil society organizations as well, because when we come together like this is just another way of brainstorming on looking at different ideas on how to make demands clear and our voice louder. All right, Ladibala, taking your final comment on the media. So what do we get to see? Some kind of commitment to making this a front burner issue? What will be your words? Ladibala, please do unmute your mic.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, thank you very much. For us, yeah. Now what is pledging its commitments to this cause. As we speak, last week we have already sent a letter taking audience for an advocacy visit on the wife of the president on this same issue. I'm happy that we are all on the same page. I believe that going as a group collectively, all women groups in Nigeria and all other groups of men that are here for this coalition for us to get to meet with the president and his wife, this will go a long way. But I think going forward, by next week, we'll see how we'll talk to some few media organizations to see how these issues will be taken up in their morning shows and discussion, to help amplify the issue while we come together and take the step of advocacy and lobbying. I still believe in the power of lobbying, that it will get us where we are, where we want to be. Yeah,
all right,
thank you.
Thank you. Chikas Komle, your final words on this.
My final words will be, Nigerian women need to come together, irrespective of their political parties. We want to see women in business. We want to see women in media speaking on the same thing. And what should that thing be? Inclusion. Inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. And that inclusion should not just be centered on the president, but it should cut across to the state governors so that we can have women appointed at the local government level as well. So galvanizing women, having a platform where we can bring in women from different sectors to demand this inclusion is what will be my final message to Nigerian women. Because politics is very powerful, and if we have a good representation of women in governance, then other policies that will affect women in business, women in entertainment will be changed to improve the lives of these women and the youth. So when we are advocating for women to be in governance, we are not just saying that only the politicians will benefit. We want the life of the Nigerian woman to be better. And in doing so, we will continue to advocate. Because for someone like me, who is a member of the PDP, I can't lobby for appointments in the APC, but I can advocate. And part of what we are doing here is an advocacy to see that the women in the APC make a significant number in the ministerial list and heads of agencies. My final word is, Nigerian women, please come together and let's speak with one voice. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chikas. Your final words, Zainab Abdurrashid.
Thank you. I would like to say this is the point where all CSOs, NGOs, and all relevant stakeholders, media and the likes, need to come together, to push for the need for inclusion of women in all spaces of leadership in Nigeria at all levels, from the grassroots to the federal level, so we can have an inclusive government and also have diversity in pushing the agenda of Nigeria forward. Creativity, originality would speak for itself when everyone is included in governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Saka Azimazi, your final words on the 35% affirmative action on the ministerial list.
Thank you again for bringing me into the conversation. My final word is that while it is very significant that women come together, all groups of all kinds of women at all levels come together, I think we need to seek for the men who support women. If you are talking of legislation, for instance, the majority of the people at all parliaments across Nigeria are overwhelmingly men. So we need to look for how do we bring in men to support women in this advocacy. It is a justice not just for women, but it's for men too. If life of women are good, then the family life is better.
All right. Thank you so much. NMB, your final words. NMB, can you hear me? All right, we'll move over to Mufuliat.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, please, your final
sorry
words.
about that. Yeah. All right, quickly, I would just say I would like to see where the advocacy begins from a much earlier stage. by the time you get to National Assembly or the federal government after the elections, you are probably late to the game. Perhaps you should see more advocacy and more women holding strong positions in political parties, perhaps state party chairmen, federal national party chairmen holding strong offices, so that you can begin to move things. If we understood that, come on, the last primaries of the APC made us understand that delegates have a lot of power when it comes to choosing the candidates. So if you can influence things at party level, at local government level, perhaps you may have it will be easier to push things when you get to the federal government level.
All right. Thank you so much. At this point, it is safe to say that we all have made different points, looking at different angles, and we're all speaking with one voice. I hope that away from this conversation, we'll be able to make more intentional action plans on how to go about this and putting pressure on the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's led administration. We hope that our president, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, gets to hear this conversation and understands the benefits and importance of having 35% women in his ministerial appointment, including 35% of women is for the growth and development of our dear nation, Nigeria. It is good governance, and it also shows fairness. He has continually spoken about the importance of women. We've seen his antecedent as a governor in Lagos State, and this is something that people get to talk about, and some people have even referred in the course of this conversation. So we hope that he's going to make the right decision in line with this ministerial appointment. Thank you to our panelists, Honorable Adeomi Onanuga, Deputy Chief Whip, House of Representatives, Amina Agbaji, National President, FIDA, Mufuliyat Fijabi, CEO, Nigerian Women Trust Fund and Director, Sustainable Gender Action, Ladi Bala, National President, Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, Emebi Opalowa, Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget, Chikas Kumli, PDP member and Social Justice Advocate, Barrister Jamila Babuba, APC Professional Women Council Northeast Coordinator, Zainab Abdul Rashid, Programs Officer, Rapa, Nigeria, Saka Azimazi, former Deputy Director, National Human Rights Commission. Thank you to all who took time out to participate this evening, and thank you so much to my colleagues in the media who have joined us in this conversation. Please help amplify this conversation to reach the presidency. Thanks to the executive producer, Tumo Okewali Shunaya, and to the production team of Nifemi Olaifa, Michael Paul Eke, Elizabeth Abo, Lillian Alegbe, Tony Sinoshoyomi, and Hilary Stephen. My name is Esther Alaribi. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
If you love us, like us.